My name is Riley, and I'm the Director of Client Relationships and Engagement here at RightCapital. I hope everyone is having a wonderful week so far. Happy Friday. Welcome to our webinar today, where we are going to focus on the top 5 questions shaping today's retirement conversations. Just a quick rundown of today's agenda. We're going to deep dive into those 5 questions, really focused on debt, Social Security, Roth conversions, spending, and healthcare expenses. So then we'll go into how to create and compare those questions effectively. And then throughout the presentation, we'll go over some presentation tips to improve client clarity and engagement as you're presenting all of this information to your clients. So before I jump into the client plan today, I have just a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded, and we will send you a copy shortly after the webinar. And we will be doing a Q&A session at the very end, so please use that Q&A option in Zoom to ask questions throughout the webinar. So before I jump into the Adam and Jackie Sandler plan today, I did want to highlight some really important stats. So we're looking at a lot of research about kind of what are the top questions clients are asking. And a recent survey published by Live Career in August of last year uncovered a lot of deep-seated anxiety about financial challenges of actually stepping away from the workforce. So only 34% of non-retired people feel on track with their retirement savings. 59% cited the rising costs of long-term care as a top concern, along with 41% saying medical expenses are a top concern as well. And then lastly, 45% of people were nervous about maintaining their desired standard of living in retirement. So I am going to open my client plan today. We're going to be working on the fan favorite Adam and Jackie Sandler. And as I'm opening this client plan, Adam and Jackie are both in their early 60s, and they're hoping to retire in the next 3 to 5 years. So I'm just going to move Zoom around. And the first place I'm going to go is up at the very top right of my screen. I'm going to click into the profile, and then on the far right, I'm going to click into blueprint. So I just want to start here to give you a quick overview of this client plan. This is where a lot of advisors will start off in their client presentations. This is a visual of the data entry and all the data entry points that are made in the plan. So one, it's easier to present to clients, and then it's really easy for the clients to understand the visuals. So up first in the blueprint, we have our net worth, just quick overview. Adam and Jackie, 63 and 60. And then I just want to give a sneak peek about all of the investment accounts and banking accounts, things like that entered into the plan. So very stereotypical client plan. 401k, we have some credit card debt, we have some auto loans, we have some student loans for their child. He's paying for graduate school. We have some joint checking account, we have a primary home, we have a mortgage, and then same thing with the co-client Jackie, investment accounts, and some credit cards in there. So again, I'm up at the very top of my screen, clicking into blueprint, and then here is a great place to start with clients, just giving them the visual of all the data entry points. I always sneak this in on webinars because I think it's very important. Let's say I was presenting to the clients here and they said, oh, maybe they were the ones doing the data entry. And they said, oh, actually, Jackie's 401k is not 165,000, it's 145,000. We accidentally miskeyed that into the plan. The blueprint is all kind of flexible here, so I can click into it and make any adjustments. So on the right-hand side of the screen, if I wanted to click into Jackie's 401k, it's interactive, I can click into it and then make any adjustments. So I always just like to point that out, that it's very interactive. You can click into everything to get more information. So, and then I'm just going to click quickly into goals. Again, very stereotypical goals here, just retirement, some home improvements, things like that. And then lastly, just clicking into income, savings, and expenses, just mapping out salary. We have their estimated Social Security entered in there, and then just some common 401k contributions. All right, so the first question on today's agenda is, how should I handle debt as I approach retirement? And the best place to start off there is up at the very top right of my screen. I'm going to click into the 3 dots next to profile. That's what we call our more menu. And then the first module to pop up here is the debt module. So some subsection or questions kind of stemming from that main question is, how should I handle debt when I approach retirement? A lot of clients ask, should I pay off all my debt before I retire? Is it okay to carry a mortgage into retirement? How will my debt affect my retirement income? And then, is it better to invest extra money or pay down my debt first? So all very valid questions, all very important ones. So the debt module here is really driven in the action items down below. So right here, I just have their current pay down, just their current schedule to pay down all the debt that we have entered. So if I click into the action items, and then if I scroll down, there's three main components to our debt management module. And the first one is our proposed payment strategy. So I can propose a different payment priority. I can also show the client taking available cash flows and paying towards that debt. And then I can also look at individual loan strategies, which is most commonly used to show refinancing. So we're going to start off with the different payment priorities. So up top, again, I'm in the action items. And just for you who may just be joining, I'm at the three dots at the very top right of my screen, clicking into the debt module, and then here on the summary page. And again, this blue in the graph is my current debt pay down strategy. And then down below in the action items is where I'm proposing a different pay down strategy. And again, the goal is to really eliminate that debt sooner rather than later. So in the action items down below, payment priority is our first option. So if I click on this drop down where it says same priority for all debt, I can show the client the benefit of either paying highest to lowest interest rate or either lowest highest balance. So if I select highest to lowest interest rate, what's going to happen is it's going to look at all of the individual loans I have here and then pay them down highest to lowest interest rate. So as soon as I press refresh, I can see the benefit of doing that. So if they were to shift that payment priority, they'd have a total savings of around $47,000 and they'd be debt-free 274 months sooner. And then if I wanted to switch that over and say, well, let's look at paying lowest to highest balance. And then again, just scrolling down and pressing that refresh. And then here's a really great visual to show the client the impact over time. So that is the first action item. And then right below that, let's say when we're looking at the plan, we know that Adam and Jackie have an additional $500 left over after all of their expenses are accounted for the month. I can use this slider or I can click into this dollar amount and then enter that $500. So that will again apply the extra cash flow that the client has and then pay down this debt sooner. And again, same concept, just scrolling down to the very bottom, pressing refresh. And then here I can see, okay, even more savings and debt-free even sooner. And it's really fluid conversation because maybe they're like, oh, maybe we don't want to use all 500 and we want to look at different investments, which we'll get to in just a little. But this is really easy to click back in and say, okay, well, let's not do the full 500, let's do 200. Again, refresh, and that will automatically update. So that's the second use case for this module. And then if I scroll down below to individual loan strategy, this is where a lot of advisors will show the impact of refinancing. So if I scroll down, here we see the individual loans, the interest rate, the balance, and then the strategy. So if I click on this use proposed payment strategy, that dropdown will show me keep current payments or refinance. And I just want to point out that if I wanted to remove a specific loan from the debt module, so I don't want it to be factored into this new proposed payment strategy that I modeled out above, I can do keep current payment, and that just removes it from the proposal, and RightCapital will just keep the same information that you've entered in their profile net worth section. So if I don't want that credit card to be impacted by that highest to lowest interest rate proposal, I can just keep current payment and we'll just keep paying down exactly how you modeled it before. And then lastly is that refinance option. So then right next to the refinance, there's three fields: cost, term, and rate. The cost is the actual cost to do the refinance. So in this case, let's say the credit card, it was $500 to actually refinance. I would put that cost in and then map out the new term and the rate. So most popular for the mortgages, again, I could do it for this one. And then cost is the actual cost to do the refinance on the mortgage, and then the new term and interest rate. And then again, same concept, you just have to press refresh, and then all of a sudden this will automatically refresh. So very interactive, very easy to make adjustments and show the client the impact over time. And then at the very top right of the screen next to strategy, we have our payment and details tab. And this is more of a cash flow visual of what's going on in that visual chart in the summary tab. So again, this will show all of the debt that's entered, balance, rate, minimum payment, current payment, and proposed payment. So just more visual there, just to kind of walk through it with the client. And then lastly is the details tab. And again, that just isolates each specific debt. And then I can see either on an annual or monthly amortization schedule here. So year, month, balance, and all of those great details. So that really is the first stop to go with the debt. So let's say I'm just going to go down to the action items. We're going to show highest to lowest balance. We're going to take $200 each month and apply it down to the debt. So I have this proposal built. Clients really like this idea. This is really nice total savings. I definitely want to be debt-free 270 months sooner. So now that I have this proposal built out, there's one additional step to kind of tie this into the entire plan. So it's really important to note that our debt module here is standalone. So everything I just built out is only impacting this module itself. But I can go over to the very top right of my screen and go into the retirement tab. And then once this loads, on the analysis section, I can go into the probability tab and scroll down to the very bottom where we can click into action items. And now on the right-hand side of my screen, under strategies, we have a debt strategy. And what this allows me to do is bring in that debt proposal that I just built out in the more menu debt module and bring it into the retirement analysis to see the impacts in those Monte Carlo trials. So now I can bring that debt proposal in and show the impact with all of the other variables that I've entered in the client's plan. So now with this debt proposal, I can now factor that into the probability of success. So I'm just going to show that one more time. If I am at the very top right of my screen and click into those three dots and then click into the debt module, again, we built out that proposal, show those different payment priorities. And as soon as I lock it down in here, this is the proposal I want to show. I can go back over to the middle of my screen, go into retirement, go into analysis. Here I see the probability of success of the proposed and current plan. And if I scroll down into those action items on the right-hand side, you'll see the debt strategy, and I just have to switch over from current payments to debt proposal. If you do not see the debt strategy listed under your client strategies, you just have to scroll all the way down to the very bottom and click into Edit. So Edit will allow you to add or remove different action items in this module. And if I on the right-hand side, I'll see all of the different strategies that I can check off. So if it's not selected, you just check off debt strategy, press save, and then you'll see that automatically added to the client's retirement analysis action items. Awesome. So again, just the gist of that module, really to show clients the different payment priorities, really answer those questions of what will happen to my debt as I approach retirement, and is there any changes I can make? It can also show shifting additional monthly payments to accelerate that debt elimination, and then also show them the impact of refinancing, and then taking a step further to tie it into the entire plan here in the retirement analysis. And again, if you have any questions on anything I'm reviewing, just drop that into the Q&A, and then at the very end, we'll go over all the questions that are asked. Awesome. All right, so the next question, really hot topic now, is when should I start taking Social Security benefits to maximize my income? And the best place to go for that is still in our retirement tab, and right below retirement, up at the very top of my screen, I'm clicking into Social Security. So this module is really going to give you really nice visuals on the most optimal strategy to get the most dollar amount out of Social Security for your benefit. So again, this module is driven a lot by the action items down below. So this is going to show just the optimal strategy for the client to receive the most benefit from Social Security, so the most dollar amount coming into the plan. So Adam and Jackie's optimal filing age should be age 70 to get the most amount out of Social Security. And then this visual here is going to compare their current strategy versus the optimal. So here we can see optimal in blue, current strategy in gray. And then on the right-hand side, it's showing that if they were to file at age 70 versus their current strategy, they'd have almost $840,000 more than they're filing at their current strategy. And then this is interactive again. So if I wanted to compare their as early as possible or full retirement or age 70 to that current strategy, I can do that. or if I wanted to do as soon as possible versus their current strategy, we can see that automatically updated. So this is really looking at when should the client file to get the most out of Social Security, and then this is a really helpful visual to show them the direct comparison between the two. So this is our annual cash flow. Again, I can hover over each year of the projection and really look at the difference in the dollar amount being paid out to the client. And then I'm just going to switch that over to optimal. And then I always point out, whenever you see a graph in RightCapital, next to the title of the graph, you will normally see a little downward arrow. That means there's more elements to the graph. So if I click into it, I can switch over to the cumulative cash flow. And this is a great visual to show the break-even point. So then we can see age 70 is that break-even point between the optimal and the current filing strategy. So this is the first stop on the Social Security. Again, I'm in the retirement Social Security, and this module is really comparing getting the most out of Social Security. And then right next to the comparison tab, I can click into summary. And then here's another great visual of all of the strategies and then the dollar amount difference. So again, I can hover over the graph, optimal, current, as early as possible, full retirement age, and then age 70. So it's important to note this, again, is a standalone module, but just like the debt module, we can bring this into the retirement analysis to factor that in with all of the other variables and run that through the Monte Carlo trials. So if I go up to retirement and then analysis, and then again, if I scroll down towards the very bottom of the action items on the right-hand side, we also have a Social Security strategy. So I can click on that drop down and I can implement that optimal strategy. I can also look at, again, all of the different options. So as early as possible, full retirement, age 70, or I can even customize that. So maybe in this client presentation, Adam says, well, I want to take mine at 69 and Jackie's thinking about, maybe 67. So you have that flexibility as well. But then if I put in optimal strategy and then again, scroll down, refresh, now my proposed plan is factoring in that debt proposal as well as that optimal strategy. So it's really important to point out that if I'm just going to set all things neutral other than the optimal strategy, and this may be common if you're looking at different client plans, and again, it depends on all of the variables that are going into the client's plan. But here with all things neutral, I can see in the current plan, they have 6.4 as their median ending asset, and then comparing it to the proposed plan with 6.2. So although the optimal strategy may be for filing at 70 to receive the most dollar amount figure coming into the plan, it may not be the most optimal scenario for the client on the grand scheme of their plan. So maybe they were relying on that Social Security income to come in when they retire at that age versus holding off, and most likely in this case, they're having to pull from their portfolio, so it's outweighing actually filing for their Social Security benefit. So a lot of advisors will use the two modules together. So Social Security, let's get the most out of Social Security benefit itself, but then tying it into the proposal and really looking at everything as a whole. Maybe that optimal age 70 isn't the best solution here if the clients are relying on that benefit in their plan. And then it's just looking at the difference in maybe invested assets over time. In this scenario, they're most likely needing to pull from their portfolio, and then waiting for Social Security is not the most optimal scenario. So just want to run through that one more time. Retirement, Social Security, again, standalone module, really looking at optimizing the benefit itself. And then advisors will use this as a great visual, go through the comparison and summary, really touch on that break-even point. That's also a very important thing to take into consideration. And then step 2 of this is really looking at the retirement analysis section and then bringing it into the entire plan as a whole and seeing what impact does that have on the plan. Awesome. And again, that's action items on the right-hand side, Social Security. And if you don't automatically see that strategy listed, just go all the way down to the very bottom, press edit, and then check off that Social Security filing strategy. All right, up next is another fan favorite, very important. Should I do a Roth conversion before or during retirement to reduce future taxes? So I'm going to go all the way up to the very top of the screen and click into the tax tab. So top right, and then right below that, I'm going to click into tax strategies. So just for the sake of time today, I always say that the tax strategies, this is in itself its own webinar to really deep dive into everything this module can do. We have so many help center articles, videos. We also have a lot of previously recorded webinars that go over this in much more detail. But I really just want to point it out as a solution for showing clients the benefit of doing Roth conversions. And this is the deep dive into all of those things. So a lot of clients will ask, should I do those Roth conversions before, or what does my timeline look like for doing Roth conversions? I know it will save me a lot in taxes over time, but can you show me exactly what I need to do to really lower that tax bill? So tax strategies, and then I'm clicking into the calibration tab because this is really where a lot of advisors spend the most time in this module. And it's really looking at this ordinary income tax bracket graph. So what this will do is the blue in the graph is the adjusted taxable income without conversion. And then you'll see these lines going through the middle of the graph, and those are the different tax brackets. And then the green is the adjustable taxable income with a conversion. And this module is really driven by the action items down below. So if I click into action items and scroll down, so on the left-hand side, we have our proposed strategy. And today I'm just really focusing on this fill up the tax bracket. Again, we have lots of content on everything else in this module, but really this ordinary income tax bracket, this 12 to 15%, I'm going to move this slider, and then just for visual, if I bump that up to the 22% bracket, what RightCapital is doing is looking at whenever the client is beneath that bracket, can they do a conversion to fill up to that bracket but not go over it? So if I'm looking at the 22% bracket, and then if I scroll up, I'll see that green in the graph, and that is symbolizing a Roth conversion. So we're looking at, okay, in these years of the planning projection, they are beneath that tax bracket and can do that conversion to fill up to that bracket. And then on the right-hand side, it's going to show, does that proposed strategy result in more or less tax-adjusted ending assets than the reference strategy on the right? So then I'm going to move this slider back down to the 12 to 15% bracket, just for a visual today. And then I can see, again, in the green, they're doing those Roth conversions year over year. And then what advisors will do is go over to the comparisons tab, and they'll look at differences in invested assets, total federal tax paid over time. So if I were to fill up that bracket, the proposed strategies, Adam and Jackie would spend $637,000 less in total federal taxes paid than doing no conversion, which is referenced in our reference strategy on the right. Then again, I'm clicking into this graph. I can also look at RMDs over time. So this proposed strategy is almost $2.9 million less in total RMDs versus that reference strategy. And then again, looking at tax adjusted ending wealth. And then last, there's two more: withdrawal and account balance. So again, just very helpful visuals, but this is really the hub for kind of looking at when should I do that Roth conversion? Should I do it before or after retirement? And then it's using these five tabs in RightCapital to really look at, is it beneficial to do it before? When is it optimal? And kind of what are all the nuances in doing the conversion? And then we also have the details tab. So this is going to be the cash flow kind of version behind the scenes of the graph of exactly what the clients are converting year over year to get them to that point. What are they pulling from their taxable, tax deferred, and tax-free accounts? And then what is the account balance for those three buckets each year? And then advisors will also look at the strategies tab, and we have what's called a solve for top strategies. And then I can press that, and then we'll give the top 5 strategies for the most kind of ending the plan with the most ending assets. So that will just load, and then I can look at the top strategies for the tax adjusted ending assets. And then here we'll see the 3 categories: asset location, withdrawal strategy, and then the Roth conversion strategy. So then all I'd have to do is scroll down to the action items and just mirror the drop downs with the 3 strategies. So first one would be tax-free, taxable, tax-deferred for the asset location strategy. So then I would just want to make sure that that matches up. And then same thing for the withdrawal strategy. The client would be pulling from their taxable bucket first, then tapping into tax-free, and lastly tax-deferred. And then I just want to make sure that matches up. And then the last one is the Roth conversion strategy. So I'd be filling up that slider to that 10%. And then press refresh, and then that will all reflect and update. And then I can use these tabs to show the client the visual. So again, this is a dedicated webinar, really deep diving into all of the logistics here. And I always recommend the Help Center content, but also if you're new to RightCapital, I highly recommend reaching out to our support team. And it's really helpful to walk through your client's case study with somebody on our support team, just to go through those nuances as well. But let's say I went through everything in the tax strategies. I'm really happy with the proposal I just built for the client. And then same thing with the debt and the Social Security. I can come back to retirement analysis, and I can bring in that standalone tax strategy module into the client's retirement analysis. So this is a trend. It's really a lot of advisors will work on different proposals and then bring it into the probability to really see how that it jives with everything in the plan. So again, in the action items down below, on the right-hand side, we have our tax strategy. And then same thing, just clicking on that drop down, and then proposed strategy brings everything I entered into the action items in that proposed plan right to my proposal here. And then just press refresh, and then I can see the overall impacts on the retirement plan. So that is Roth conversions. And then the next hot question is, how much can I safely spend each year in retirement without running out of money? I know that is one of the most common questions we see is how can I push that budget where I can enjoy retirement, but maybe I want to make sure I have some left over to pass on to kids, or I just want to make sure that I can really make it to the end of the plan with, living comfortably, but not running out at the very end. The best place to show that, again, is down below in the action items here. You can really put stress on different variables. The main variable that advisors will look to change when that question comes up is the retirement monthly expense figure. So in the action items here, I can click into this proposed column where it says $3,000 for their monthly expenses, and then I can easily just change that figure. So right now, 100% probability, 6.5 is their median ending asset. So let's say I jump that up to, let's go really high, 8,000. Just maybe they live large and they really want to just see kind of what that spend down looks like. So this is, now we drop down to 40% probability of success, and we no longer have any median ending assets. And the best place to see this in more detail is actually the confidence chart. So whenever you see this as 0 or a really low probability of success, it's always important to go to the confidence chart to see, well, where are they actually running out of money? So we bumped that expense up pretty high to $8,000 a month. And we can see in this confidence chart, that thick median line going through the middle of the graph, it trends down as the expenses increase, but then we can see at the very tail end of the plan is where they run out of money. So then as the advisor, I can come back to the action items and I can say, okay, well, you made it to 92 with that, or we really hit the median at 0 at 92. So let's go back to the probability and maybe we bump that down, let's say 7,000. And again, it's the same thing, kind of going back and forth with the action items, looking at the probability of success, as well as that confidence chart. And that really comes into play in long-term care and healthcare expenses, which we'll go over in just a second. But that's the first variable that a lot of advisors look to change when that question comes up is, how much can I spend each year in retirement, ensuring that I'm not running out of money? So again, that is retirement monthly expenses. But then let's put this back down to 3,000. And let's say the client has very specific goals that they want to look at. So maybe they say, in retirement, I really want to make sure I can take a really nice vacations with my family. So then what you can do is go down in the action items, scroll all the way down to the very bottom and click into the edit button. And what advisors will do is click into these add new items at the bottom left. And then here I can add any variable just to the proposed plan. So it's not going to impact that current base case that I've already built out, but maybe I want to go up to goals and then I want to do a vacation goal, or maybe I want to look at a wedding goal or property purchase, or maybe asset purchase or personal gift or charitable giving, or even a legacy goal. So I set up a legacy goal to say, I really want to make sure I have at least $500,000 left to make sure I can pass it over to my children. So then all I have to do is click, let's say vacation, and maybe this client is a world traveler and Adam wants to look at, can I go to Bali every year? And let's just say it's a crazy vacation, $25,000. Adam's the owner. Let's say he wants to look, can I do this from 2035 to the end of the plan? So maybe this happens every year. And then this happens, it goes to Adam's end of the plan. And then we'll just press save. And then once that loads in the action items, under that financial goals on the left-hand side, I will see that under the proposed plan column, it says $25,000, meaning it's applied to my proposed plan. But on the right-hand side where I see current plan, there is nothing there, meaning it's not impacting the client's current plan. So this really gives you flexibility to build out all of those what if scenarios, but not impact their base case. Then if I press refresh, that will automatically update, and then I can see, okay, this is the new probability of success if we were to factor that trip in. So I just want to show that one more time because it's a little bit of a kind of clicking to get there. But I am at the very top, retirement analysis, and I'm in the probability tab. I'm scrolling down to the action items, and then all the way down on the very bottom right, I'm clicking into edit. And then on the left-hand side under add new items, that is how I can add any what if scenario that only impacts the client's proposed plan. And then here I can scroll on everything here, and then I can easily add that and it will not impact the current plan. So that is the question about spending in retirement. And then the last one is, how do healthcare costs and long-term care costs factor into my spending plan? So I'm going to get out of this screen and I just want to go first, kind of start where the healthcare and long-term care costs are entered into RightCapital. So that is up at the very top right of the screen, and that's profile, and then the goals section. So right next to net worth, clicking into goals. And we have some default expenses in here. So you'll see in each client plan, we have an annual retirement health cost card. So if I click into that, here by default, we'll start the goal at their retirement, and then we'll use the national average. So we update that every year. But if I click on this dropdown, a lot of advisors will use the detailed estimate. And what this will allow you to do is enter pre-Medicare costs, and then RightCapital will automatically calculate Medicare Part B and D premiums based on the client's AGI. So that gets very detailed in the cash flows, allowing each year we'll look at their AGI and automatically adjust the premiums. And then lastly, the out-of-pocket, maybe they have that additional supplemental insurance, the dental, the vision, you can model out any out-of-pocket expenses as well. So just to show that again, under cost estimate, if I click on that drop down, you can customize the amount, again, just putting in that dollar figure. Detailed estimate gets more granular on RightCapital doing the calculation for their premiums. Pre-Medicare would just be any cost before the client turns 65, and then B and D premiums based on their AGI, so that will fluctuate year over year. And then out of pocket would be any additional supplemental insurance, so dental, vision, or any other Medigap plans that they may opt for. And then on the right-hand side, I can do the same thing for the co-client, again, detailed average, and then press save. So that's the first thing, is retirement healthcare cost. And then right next to that is the retirement long-term care cost. So by default, we include I'm just setting this back to our default so everyone can see. So we do in-home care for the client and co-client for the last 2 years of the plan. So this national average, what we do each year, you'll see in the cash flows that this $75,000 figure will increase by your healthcare inflation. And then you'll see that as a much larger figure at the end of the plan. So I can use in-home care, or I can use assisted living, or I can also use nursing home. And those are all national averages. But we are in Connecticut, and I know that that is very low for Connecticut. So if I wanted to go into customized amount, I think Connecticut for nursing home is maybe approaching almost $200,000 a year. So I can click into customize and then model that out as well. But the gist of this card is to say, what is the cost estimate? How long do you want to run this expense for? So is it the last 2 years, all the way up to the last 10 years? Or if you don't want to factor in long-term care, you don't have to. You can switch over to no long-term care to turn the card off. So that's the foundation of where that expense is coming. Right below the cost estimate, we just recently added this product enhancement to automatically stop monthly retirement living expenses when the last long-term care event starts. So this can help, so that $3,000 retirement monthly expense will stop when Jackie goes into long-term care. So just a more flexible way to track expenses in retirement. So then once I press save here, I can go back to the retirement tab. And then in the analysis section, I can scroll down to the action items, and then all the way down to the very bottom, I'm just going to click into edit. And then under the financial goals, we will have an option to select the long-term care cost. Sorry, it keeps overriding that. Long-term care cost and duration for both Adam and Jackie. And then if I scroll down, I can also look at her retirement healthcare costs as well as Adam's retirement healthcare costs. And then if I press save, it adds it as an action item. So then I can explore all different options and how that impacts the proposed plan. So maybe when you're running this for a client, the long-term care duration is really kind of tanking the probability of success, or you really want to say, okay, what is the absolute max? Let's say this is the long-term care duration is 10 years versus 2. What does that impact? And then same thing for the retirement healthcare costs, if I really want to look at the difference there. And then same thing with the actual long-term care costs. So let's say 127,000 is the national average, but this client is from Connecticut, so we know it's going to be much more. We can say 200,000. And then press refresh. And this is where you can really look at all the variables to answer that question, is how do those that healthcare costs and long-term care costs factor into my spending plan? And then again, it's looking at the new probability of success, coming back down to the action items, and then making that adjustment. So that is the gist of showing that. Again, the key to the action items down below is if you don't see it, you just have to scroll all the way down to the very bottom and click into edit, and then you can always add or remove those action items. I always also like to point out that if you are removing an action item here, that doesn't mean you're taking it out of the plan. It's just not something you're looking to make an adjustment to. So if for example, under income, I don't have Adam's salary checked off, but that doesn't mean we're not factoring in his salary. It just means that it's not something I'm looking to make a change to. So if I wanted to take off that retirement monthly expense because I don't want to look at that and make changes to it, I don't have to have that listed in the action items. Awesome. So I'm just going to read those questions one more time. Top questions. How should I handle my debt as I approach retirement? Best place to do that is in the 3 dots up here, that more menu. Again, building out that debt proposal, looking at those pay down strategies, locking it in here, and then bringing it back over to the retirement tab. Up next would be Social Security. So when should I start taking my Social Security benefit to maximize my income? First stop would be retirement Social Security, looking at actually maxing that income coming in. And then once this is reviewed and kind of looked at, hopping back over to that retirement analysis tab. And then in those action items, looking at that strategy down below. So action items on the right-hand side, Social Security. And again, always looking at optimal. Is it really optimal as it comes into the proposed plan? Does the client rely on that Social Security income? Does that outweigh pulling from the portfolio versus filing at full retirement age? So that's something to explore. And then the third question, should I do a Roth conversion before or during retirement to reduce those taxes? So that's really using our tax tab. And then right below that, tax strategies. and then going through the Roth conversion, really using the strategies tab here. You can use that solve it function, look at all the details, lock in that proposal, and bring it back to that retirement tab. And then the last two really focus in the retirement analysis, and that's looking at how can I safely spend each year without running out of money? And then also, how do those healthcare and long-term care expenses kick in and play a huge factor in that end of planning for that retirement plan? So that's everything today. The hub of everything typically in RightCapital is the retirement analysis. But again, we have lots of strategies to really build out proposals in the different planning modules and then bring it all back and run it through that probability of success.